السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. كيف حالكم جميعا يا أيها الإخوة وأخوات brothers and sisters. This is your brother Nafis Abu Zayd. Alhamdulillah. Now, it's no secret to many of us of the current day challenges as well as the trials and tribulations that we find ourselves facing, especially in this era, being so far and distant away from our Salaf. And it's also no secret that in this era of this trials and tribulations and being distant from the Salaf, there are many things that are contradictory, as well as a contradiction to that of the minhaj or the methodology that was tread by our pious Salaf, as well as from our pious al-imma, imams, and the ulama, rabbaniyin, those well-grounded and firm scholars. And unfortunately, in our time, there have issued individuals who, for one reason or another, chose to try to regulate the Dawa, try to control the Dawa. And they use different tactics and they use different means to control or to section out the actual Dawa. And we like to use something, inshallah ta'ala, going back to one of the earlier scholars. We're going to be using some of his work, inshallah ta'ala. And one of the works that we're going to be reading from, inshallah ta'ala, is showing that regulating the dawah is not from the way of the ulama, or rabbaniyin, or the a'immat salaf, is a book which is famous and is well known amongst the ulama as well as the tulab. And this particular book has been titled Akhlaq al-Ulama, and has been authored by Abu Bakr Muhammad ibn Hussein ibn Abdullah al-Ajuri, who died 970, which is 300 Hijrah, in Mecca al-Hijaz. He was also a scholar. Some reported that he was a Shafi'i scholar, some said that he was Hanbali. And he was born in Baghdad, in Iraq. And he is famously known for many works that he had put together. But this tremendous book here is the manners of the scholars. Akhlaq al-Ulama, the manners and characteristics of the scholars. We're going to take from this tremendous book to solidify some of the things that we have seen and to mention our point, inshallah ta'ala, about regulating the dawah. We're going to read from the first chapter, by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala, and some from the second chapter. The first chapter, the author, Abu Bakr al-Ajuri, rahmatullah ta'ala alayh, he mentioned a tremendous hadith that all of us might have heard. And this hadith come by way of a noble companion, Abu Darda, which is also collected by numerous transmitters. It's collected by Abu Dawood, At-Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, and Ibn Hibban. Shaykh al-Albani graded it Hasan in his Mishkat, and al-Bihaqi. However, the version here that he quotes is the one that comes by way of At-Tirmidhi. And that hadith mentioned, in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, وَلَفَضْلَ الْعَالِمِ عَلَى عَابِدِكَ فَضْلِ الْقَمْرِ لَيْلَةَ الْبَدْرِ عَلَى سَائِرِ الْكَوَاكِبِ إن العلماء ورثة الأنبياء إن الأنبياء لم يورثوا دينارا ولا درهما وإنما ورثوا علم فمن عقده عقد بحق وافر. In this tremendous hadith, the Prophet ﷺ mentions And just so all of us on point, from Abu Darda, the Prophet ﷺ says that indeed the superiority of the learned man, meaning the ulama, the scholar, the superiority of the scholar over the devout worshipper, meaning the abid, the one who worships Allah Azza wa Jal, is that of the full moon to the rest of the stars. The learned men are the heirs. They are the heirs. They are those who inherited from the prophets, who bequeath neither dinar nor dirham, meaning this was the money during that time, who do not need any dirham, and these was the coins that were used during the time of the prophets. He mentioned that, but only that of knowledge, and he who acquires it has in fact acquired abundant portion. And I chose to read the translation version as opposed to translating it from myself, just to give a better way of presenting it as far as the English, by the permission of Allah. The Sheikh brings this hadith that shows the virtue of the alim. And it's important to understand that there is a status, there is a virtue of the scholar. No one's denied this. As Allah Azza wa Jal says, Shahid Allahu annahu la ilaha illa huwa wa malaikatu wa ulul ilmi. As Allah said in that famous verse in Surah Ali Imran, Allah bear witness that none has the right to be worshipped except He. So does the angels, and so does the people of knowledge. Allah mentioned the people of knowledge along with the angels, along with Himself, showing the status and the position of the people of knowledge. There's no doubt. So the people of knowledge have more virtue over the one who just worship Allah Azza wa Jal. Tayyib. But in the beginning of this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is reported to said, "Man salika tariqan yabtaghi fihi ilman, sahalallahu lahu tariqa ila al-jannah." The Prophet ﷺ said, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he said, "He who follows a path in quest of knowledge, Allah will make the path of Jannah easy to him." Then he continues. He said, "Wa inna malaika." He said, "And the angels, they lower their wings over the talabu ilm," meaning the student of knowledge, being pleased with what he does. The inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, and even the fish in the depth of the ocean, seek forgiveness for him. So this shows you the superiority, and it shows you the virtue and the fadl, okay, of the scholar over the worshipper. And some of the ulama, in comment on this hadith, they said that the difference and with the scholar is that the scholar does not only benefits himself, but he benefits others. His knowledge is not limited to himself, but it benefits others. Whereas the worshipper, his worship only benefits himself. His worship does not benefit or extends beyond himself. So that shows you the virtues of the scholars. Why are we bringing this to the point of regulating the Dawa? The reason why we mentioned or we brought this book up is just to show that the scholars have a virtue and a position in Islam. The students of knowledge likewise have a virtue and a position in Al-Islam. Okay? The second chapter mentioned the awsaf of the ulama, the characteristics, the manners of the ulama, and those who benefit, those whom Allah Jalla wa Ala benefit by way of them from their knowledge in this life and the next life. The author Muhammad ibn Hussein, he said, for this reason, the alim, he has mannerisms, characteristics that must be observed due to a variety of different circumstances or conditions and different positions. So it's a must, it was necessary that he utilize them. He must utilize them in all circumstances, that which is incumbent upon him. Meaning, there are positions and times where he have to adorn himself with certain characteristics and certain manners. Okay? Whether that be in the fact of, there's a manner in acquiring knowledge. How does one seek knowledge? There's a mannerism in retaining knowledge. Okay? If you have abundance of knowledge, what is incumbent upon him regarding that? him having that knowledge, him storing that knowledge, what is incumbent upon him. There's a mannerism in him sitting with the people of knowledge. How do he behave himself in their gatherings? There's a mannerism in him learning and taking knowledge from the people of knowledge. And how does he learn? There's a mannerism in him teaching others besides himself. There's a mannerism in regards to the way that he debates and he argues in regards to knowledge. Okay? There's a manner for him in the way that he pass a verdict for those who are of the level of passing verdicts. How does a verdict get passed? And there is a characteristic in the way that he sits with the leaders, if he is trial with sitting with them. And who is befitting that he sit with and who is not befitting that he sit with. Okay? And there's also mannerism in his gatherings with the rest of people. Those who does not benefit either from him, as far as the lay people. Those who does not benefit either from him. And there's also a mannerism of how he worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, between him and between his Lord. And all of these things must be observed and utilized. Okay? So we understand from this that the student of knowledge and the scholar have to have certain manners and characteristics when they behave and interacting with others in different gatherings, in different circumstances, in different situations. But in today's time, we have seen individuals who have done things that are outside of these mannerisms, which indicates and shows us that these individuals are either one, ignorant of the mannerisms of the scholars and the tulab, or two, these individuals are being conniving and they are trying to control. And some of those tactics are very familiar, such as what we've seen in the past 20 years or so. We witnessed these lists being made of who to take from and who not to take from. Some scholars, they put a list of names of scholars, a list of names of students. So for those who do not know, there is no dalil within the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, nor in the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nor in the historical evidence or data where you will find that the ulama have put a list together of who to take from and who not to take from. Now, there are works where there are tabaqat, which is the plural for tabaqa. Alright? And that is a genre or a genre of biographical, biographies of scholars, of students that might be placed down from the year, So this is a tabaqat. That is not a list like we see the list of people saying take from this. There are also books from muhaddithun, from the people of hadith, where they mention their students, some in chronological order. He benefited in this, he benefited in this, and they mention a list of their students. Also, we see from the way of the scholars, they will mention their teachers, or their teachers were mentioning their students. That's how that list, if you want to say it resemble any list, will go. As far as the list that we see today, the students here is recommended to take from. This list does not exist, nor is in accordance with the kitab, nor the sunnah, nor the historical data, or the mannerisms of the scholars or the students of knowledge. That leaves us to think, why would you put a list up like that? Because what implied is that whoever is not on that list, or whoever is not mentioned on that list, then it would say that opposite of it, that person is not to be taken from, or that person, since he did not make the list, he is not someone who knowledge should be taken from. And it becomes like a control mechanism. First of all, the audacity to even create the list in the first place. Now, it's nothing wrong with scholars. They do it all the times when they are asked. Yeah, Fadilat Sheikh or Noble Sheikh, Hayakallah, we are in the region of such and such, or we live in Egypt, or we live in America, and there are some students here that study such and such, such and such. Do you know of anything about them? What do you encourage us? So forth and so on. And you will see that the scholar will mention, due to his knowledge, there's Sheikh so-and-so there, there's Sheikh so-and-so there, meaning what he knows of, that I heard good things about, or he teach good, etc. The scholar is not making that from his humble opinion, telling you that there is no other scholars in that region that you can take from just because I mentioned those particular scholars' names. This is a big misconception. Just because I recommended those names, number one, the scholar is human. So the scholar might do not know, which is evidence that he do not know all of the scholars in that region that's calling the hearing to the Sunnah. And it's a myth to most that y'all think that everyone that calls to the Sunnah all knows each other. That is not true. Okay? Yes, we do believe that everyone who calls to the Sunnah, whether they know each other or not, are brothers. Just because they don't know each other does not mean they're not brothers. They are calling to the same way. They're calling and encouraging one another to adhere to the Sunnah according to understanding the Salaf. We do believe that, no matter which part of the world are they in. But we do not hold the belief that they must know each other. That is not a must. There are scholars who do not know of other scholars, and that's true. That don't mean that because the scholar doesn't know of the other scholar doesn't mean that they are at odds with one another. Because the scholar doesn't mention so-and-so doesn't mean that you shouldn't take from so-and-so. This has been one of the tactics that has been used for the past 20 years that have nothing to do with the akhlaq, the characteristics, or the manners of the scholars for that matter, or the tulab, the students of knowledge. We do not create lists. We do not become amazed with ourselves. We do not even put ourselves on a list. Take from us. And for the commoners who are creating these lists and making these lists, we understand that you have your overzeal, you're overzealous, you have emotions, and it's okay to love and cherish the one you're learning knowledge from. But then you must do that also with knowledge. As we see, there's mannerism in learning knowledge, there's mannerism in the gatherings and sitting in knowledge, how to acquire knowledge. Creating these lists creates chaos, and it creates division, and it creates further fitna. This is why we don't see any historical reference made for those lists. We don't see that. We do see scholars recommending other scholars or recommending other students. But we do not see a list telling people you can take from him or take from them. Another controlled regulation of the Dawa tactics that have been used is that people will use the fact that one student or one scholar doesn't know this student or that scholar, then he is to be refrained from benefiting from him. No one benefits from him until we find someone validates him. Okay, yes, there are such things as tazkiyah. There are such things of ijazah. There are such things of, and they are different, and sometimes they are similar. And we've talked about this many times, and many works have been written on this from the ulama of the past and both present. However, and we like to reiterate this again because we always mention this, and some people don't understand it. We're not applying it to ourselves. We always mention the statement of Sheikh Sulaiman al-Ruhaili, Hafidhullah. And that is about the different kinds of tazkiyat. And one of the strongest types of tazkiyats that he mentioned is that when a person is calling to the Quran and the Sunnah ala fahm salaf, and his knowledge validates that which he is calling to, meaning there is no other scholar that recommends him, there is no other scholar that might knows of him, and there might be other students that recommends him nor knows of him, but what he teaches and disseminates is in alignment and in accordance with that of the Quran and the Sunnah ala fahm salaf. Nor does he go against any known positions that are solidified with the people of knowledge, nor does he rebel or go against the people of knowledge. This is the words of Sheikh Suleiman al-Ruhaili. And this is not to be applied to myself. This is not to be me saying that, if I'm teaching from the book of the Sunnah, it's not what I'm understanding. What I'm understanding is that the Sheikh is making it clear. Sometimes you're going to find an individual who doesn't have a scholar that can recommend him. You're going to find an individual who doesn't have another student of knowledge that can recommend him. But guess what? It's not binding that he does. But there's going to be individuals who's going to have the book and the sunnah and that which they teach validate what they are actually transmitting to the people. That's what's going to validate. And then Sheikh Suleiman said something even else. He said this type of tazkiyah is the strongest of the tazkiyah. This type of tazkiyah is the strongest. That a person's knowledge validates what that person is applying. Alright? So regulating the dawah to these certain tactics is not from the way of the people of knowledge, nor from the way of the tulab. I want to mention one more thing from this particular book. And if for those who don't have this in their library, the name of the book again is called Akhlaq al-Ulama. I advise you to get a copy of it. But Ibn Ajra, Sheikh Abdul Razak al-Badr got a nice explanation to it. I believe in audio form. I couldn't find it in PDF. It is a tremendous book where he explained the characteristics of the people of knowledge as well as the tulab al-ilm, as well as the student of knowledge. He mentioned that from the mannerism of the one who is inquiring knowledge. I want you to pay attention to this because this is very important, and some of the things that we see that's being transmitted from people who takes on the title of being a talib or ilm. People who takes on the title of being a talib or ilm, it's important that you understand this mannerism. From the mannerisms of acquiring knowledge and seeking knowledge, for the one who wish to do so, is that he first and foremost learn what's obligatory, that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated upon him from worship. The first thing he learns is that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated upon him from worship. Because ibadah, worship, cannot be established unless upon knowledge. And he must know that this knowledge is obligatory upon him, it's mandatory. And he must know that the believer is not good with ignorance. Okay? In other words, if he's ignorant, the believer is ignorant of those commandments and those prohibitions of Allah and the way to worship Allah Azza wa Jal, then that believer is not in a good state. He seeks knowledge to benefit himself and to negate ignorance from himself, and to worship Allah as He commanded him to, and not based according to his desires. Okay? So therefore, his seeking and want to learn and traverse upon seeking knowledge, he must have a firm belief and having ikhlas, sincerity in his traversing upon this path, and he must not be amazed with himself for traversing upon this path. Rather, he should look at the virtue of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon him by guiding him and placing that in him to want to seek this knowledge. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him to tawfiq to seek knowledge and the way to worship him and to carry out those obligations which he has obligated him to carry out, and to stay away from those things which he has prohibited. We mention this point because a lot of people in this day and age are caught up in titles. And titles has been something big in this era. A lot of people like to be praised for things which they do not have. And to be honest, a lot of us haven't set for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. But there are those who did set for 20 years. And there are those who probably did set for 15 or 10 years. And in this day and age, that is rare amongst Americans. Okay, notice what I'm saying. That is rare amongst Americans. Even more so African Americans. That is rare when it comes to sitting to acquire knowledge for those huge amount of times. with the people of knowledge. So when you have that, you understand how rare that is. So my point is saying is that all of us, from the small of us to the big of us are babies when it comes to traversing upon this path. So when we understand that, then we should not be amazed by so quickly placing titles on ourselves. This is the tulab. These are the tulabul ilm. Or these are the people. Nah. If you listen to Sheikh Salih Fawzan, Hafidhullah, they said to the Sheikh, they said, yeah, Sheikh, many people benefit from your from your explanations and from many of the works that you put forth. And the Sheikh, he mentioned, he said that really I am a small student of knowledge. I don't consider myself to be this. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bless me. And I'm paraphrasing what the Sheikh said. In my words, how the Sheikh explained it. I'm just a stall of knowledge, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit us all. This is his humbleness. Now let's go back to those scholars who preceded him, like Sheikh Al-Albani, when an individual praised him in his face and he started crying, and how he mentioned that he was a tuwaylib, a diminutive form of the scholars, and we already know his status amongst mankind and what he has reached by the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal. Humbleness is the trait of the believer. Humbleness is the trait of the scholar that is pious. Humbleness is the trait of the talibul ilm. You do not want to carry these titles and not live up to them. You do not want to place out these accolades and not live up to them. And definitely you do not want to control others by way of these titles. As the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said in the Athar Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, that the person who seeks knowledge should not seek knowledge for the following: to look down on those who are ignorant, to argue with those who have knowledge from the people to debate with those who have knowledge, meaning from the scholars, all right, or to turn the people's faces towards him. So what he does not do, he does not sit there and try to big himself up by way of what he have learned and what he have acquired. And I think that is what happened a lot of times where people call other individuals, or people even put out these lists. They are regulating the Dawa, and us common folks have to stop. Because if we haven't learned and we have not seen this from the people of knowledge, I challenge anyone right now to go back and show me one list from the people of knowledge that you respect and love that put out a list. Here's the following scholars you should take from. Here's the following scholars you should not take from. Give me one list that you ever seen the people of knowledge do that. I'll wait for that list. Give me one. Number two, this is not their way nor their manner. So when the common folks put out lists, and I'm going to say this again, when you even put out the list of masajids, pay attention now, because this is common in our era. You put out a list of masajids. These are the masajids that you take from. These are the masajids that you don't go to. That's a big, huge mistake. No, I'm not saying that we fail to acknowledge individuals or groups or organizations that call against the Book of Allah, the Sunnah, that doesn't adhere to the Quran and the Sunnah, that are political, that are etc. I'm not saying to ignore all of that. I'm saying when you say masjid so-and-so and masjid so-and-so and masjid so-and-so are the only masjids that you can take from, then what you have done, you have closed the door on all good from those other masajids that might be in that same city or that region that is a masjid and that is not calling against the Quran and the Sunnah and the understanding of the Salaf. And you just negated that. You just shut that door. Now individuals are becoming, which I gotta be honest, they are becoming into a hizb, because that's what that does. That creates a clique. I only go to this masjid. I'm only going to circulate this masjid because I heard that this masjid wasn't on the list. This wasn't a masjid that I heard that was upon clarity. So I don't go to this masjid. This masjid wasn't a masjid I know that this. And you're forgetting that the Prophet ﷺ has said in an authenticated narration that the whole entire earth, one of the things that have been granted to his followers is that the whole earth has been made as a masjid, meaning that a person can pray. So at the very least, an individual can pray. You might have a masjid from down the street where you live at, and because of this list, you forsake going to your local masjid because you saying that these individuals are upon clarity, which isn't from the way of the Salaf, which isn't from the way of the scholars, which isn't from the way of the Tulabul Ilm, which isn't from the way of the historical data. This is not how the people of knowledge, nor the Sahabas, nor the Tabi'een, nor their students and their successors respected the houses of Allah. It's not their way. Don't go here. Yes, we understand that there are organizations, there are certain masajids that are built and that the people in it, they have corrupted and distorted beliefs. And that some of them do things that are definitely away from Islam. We do understand that. But we're not going to allow ourselves to be of those who close the door to good. So do not create these lists. There's only 3 masajids. There are only 4 masajids. There are only 5 masajids. You don't have no dalil for that. And you're not Allah Azza wa Jal. And you haven't been to every masjid in the city. You haven't been to every masjid in the city. You don't know where every person is in the city. I want to tell you one of the greatest harms that can cause. There was an imam who was recently became an imam of a certain masjid here in the city of Philadelphia. And by the permission of Allah Azza wa Jalla, I think he's been there now currently going on for about 3 or 4 years, if my memory serves me right. And this individual, none of us knew of him, separate few, and none of us knew of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed him to accomplish from his way of studying. And this individual is African, but he is Meccan. He lived in Mecca, and he studied in Mecca. And this individual studied in one of the toughest schools in Mecca. One of the toughest schools in Mecca. And this individual studied and memorized the book of Allah by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala. And he studied with some well-known, strong, trustworthy scholars that we respect and love and take from. And not only that, this individual adheres to the Quran and the Sunnah and the Fahm of the Salaf. But because he was in a masjid that people had labeled that particular masjid to be upon deviation, and that it's only circulated with deviants, an individual got on a minbar in a particular masjid and said, don't go to that masjid, and said about the imam of that masjid that individual is misguided, and that individual is such and such and such and such. This is what he said about the imam. And then it becomes known, by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala, we had the honor of interviewing this particular imam on the night shift. And we see some of the things that Allah has blessed him to be able to achieve and to acquire. And we see that from our humble estimation, in the city of the Philadelphia of that time, that the people that we knew, and from other students that we respected and loved, who have studied for 8 and 10 years, who also acknowledged that this brother might be from one of the strongest individuals in our city. But because a certain individual in a certain masjid that's on the list labeled this individual misguided without any knowledge of this particular person, which was a blunder and a major and huge error on his behalf. Okay? It was an error, number one, to use the minbar as a platform for attacking other individuals. This is not from the way of the people of knowledge. The Sheikh Falah al-Ismail al-Mundakar Fidullah, he mentioned in his talk when he came to the city of Philadelphia, how do the people of the Sunnah, okay, refute the people of innovation, and how do they engage and advise the people of the Sunnah? Okay? He mentioned that they do not use the manabir, they do not use the pulpits as a platform for attacking other people of the Sunnah. or other individuals. This is not what they use. They don't utilize that. Another blunder that he made is that he said something about a Muslim that wasn't true. And he said it, which wasn't true, and it's actually on top of that, by him calling him misguidance, he was applying a ruling on this individual that wasn't true. Look at the blunder and the error that he made, all because of these lists, all because of this mentality, all because of this concept, okay, which isn't from the people of knowledge. Such and such is not at this masjid. And we hear it all the times, these statements. The people of the Sunnah are with the people of the Sunnah. What do you mean? So the people of the Sunnah are with the people of the Sunnah. What do you intend by that statement? I might understand something different from that. As I said earlier, we do believe that the people of the Sunnah are with the people of the Sunnah, even if they are in different countries, even if they are in different parts of the world. They are with the people of the Sunnah and what? In their belief. Okay? In their adherence to the Quran and the Sunnah. And their love for the Prophet ﷺ and the companions. They are with them. But when you say the people of the Sunnah are with the people of the Sunnah, what do you mean? You mean that the people have to come where you are at in order to be acknowledged as the people of the Sunnah. That's a grave error. And that's a mentality or a concept that has not been projected or has been transmitted to us from the trustworthy scholars. We do understand that the people of the Sunnah are together and united no matter where they are. That's how we are taught from the people of knowledge. We're not taught that the people of the Sunnah are with the people of the Sunnah if they are together collectively. I mean, I must know him, he must know me. That's not understood that way. Okay, as we see on YouTube, when Sheikh Udiyan was asked about Sheikh Rabia, and he said he doesn't know him. That does not mean automatically that every scholar must know of another scholar. I myself was in the taxi cab on my way back to the airport from Mecca by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala. I was having an interesting discussion with the cab driver, the taxi driver, and one of his friends that he brought along. And we were talking about they had an issue with Abu Hanifa, and they were saying that he wasn't from Ahlul Sunnah. And we was having an interesting conversation. And I mentioned certain scholars that I thought that they were understood when I started mentioning some of them. And one of those particular scholars that I mentioned, they didn't have no recollection of who he was. And at this time, Sheikh Rabia lived in Mecca. I mentioned Sheikh Rabia's name, they didn't know who he was. But when I mentioned Sheikh Al-Albani's name, I mentioned Sheikh Uthaymeen's name, they knew. That does not mean, and this is not, I'm not using this as a way of that or that. I'm just trying to explain to you that everyone is not known. Do not believe what is being projected to you. Everyone is not known. That does not mean, as we are taught here, because you are not known and the people do not know you, then something is wrong with you and we cannot go near you. We cannot take from you. That does not mean that. All right? You're going to find that if you ever travel overseas, that is not the case. That's not the case, brothers and sisters. So don't be fooled by what's in front of you. It's just another tactic and a ploy to regulate the Dawa, which is something wrong with that. No one can control Allah's Dawa. This is Allah and the Messenger's Dawa. And by the permission of Allah and His fadl and His virtue, He invited us to this Dawa. So we can't come alone and now say, who's this, who can take from, who's that. We cannot do that. And I don't care who you are. There is no scholar ala wajh al-ard, on the face of this earth, that has authority here in the U.S. I'm going to repeat that one more time. There is no scholar ala wajh al-ard, on the face of this earth, that have authority here in the U.S. Why is I'm saying this? Because there shouldn't be no reason why a scholar who's in overseas, we're not saying take advice from a scholar, we're not saying in religious matters not consult with the scholar even if he doesn't live in the West. I'm not saying that, because I believe that you can consult with them, you can take advice from them, and we love them, we benefit from them. But they don't have no sultan, okay? They don't have no authority here. And a lot of them don't even have authority in their own land to even issue a fatwa, okay? Do your research. But this is not to take away their merit. It's not to take away their fadl. But we can't allow that to be a control mechanism in a state that that's not even governed by them. So we have to be smart, and we have to place things in its proper place. We respect and love the scholars. We take from them. We benefit from them. But when it comes to division, dividing, rulings, and things like that, here in the U.S., that they do not have a platform for, then we have to ask Allah Azza wa Jal to allow us to benefit. And I'm going to bring two statements from two different scholars that indicates this, and it's not from me. Again, this is not from Nafis Abu Zayd. That brings us a benefit from producing our own scholars that know our own region and our own area, so that they can help us combat and deal with some of the problems that we have, or many of the challenges that we face here in the U.S. Okay. Sheikh Hassan Abanna in Germantown Masjid. Sheikh Hassan Abanna in Germantown Masjid. Alright? Sheikh Hassan Abanna in Germantown Masjid. Fajr. Salat. He mentioned about encouraging us to send someone from amongst us to learn and to be able to gather those knowledge that we need and come back, so that we can have people in those areas that deals with fiqh, that deals with different masails, that deals with certain things he has learned, and he can come back. But why did he say that? Because that person is from us, and he will know our circumstances better if he go learn. Okay? Another scholar who mentioned this as well, and I'm not even going to mention what Sheikh Rabia said, because he also one who said this. But I'm going to mention what Sheikh Luhaydan said. The same thing again, that someone from amongst us that know our people, and I'm not on this Qawmiyya stuff. This is not my talk. I don't even promote that. I'm not on, we should only take from people who's African American, or we should only take from people who is from. I'm not on that. That's not my thing. Yes, I understand people acknowledging their heritage. That's something I don't go against that. But I'm not on that Qawmiyya stuff. I'm on Islam, inshallah. That I like to say that this point I'm trying to bring, though, so that no one can I don't want no one misconstruing what I'm saying. That your people, meaning from those who live in America, those who were born in America, those who understand the challenges in America, those who know what we're facing on America, the different crises in America, those individuals that Allah bless. And I have to say this because I'm not on the coattails of nobody. I'm not promoting nobody. I'm not sitting there team this person, team that. That's not Nafis. But what I'm going to say is the haqq. I said to you a while back, not many of us study for 20 years. And that's rare. But what happened when you have an individual who does? That's from us. That's American. That happened to be African American. That is also studied under the tutelage of scholars. That have recommendations from scholars. That have studied and learned. And not only have he recommendation from scholars, not a piece of paper, not a letter. Scholars love the man. Scholars love the man. They testify to his character from what they have witnessed and have what? Seen from him, acquiring knowledge from him. That's Tariq Wyatt. We have one. We have an individual who studied between 22 to 23 years. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? 22 to 23 years, this man had the fadl from Allah Azza wa Jal to study that long. And we don't understand the rare, that's rare, brothers and sisters. That's rare. And we had another individual, Muhammad Munir, by the permission of Allah, and there's other individuals that I can mention. It's because I'm not mentioning their name, don't mean that they're not on that list. There are a lot of brothers that we have, along with other brothers that we know that is famous. I'm not on it. I'm not creating a list. I'm not telling you take from this one and take from that one. That Allah have gave them fadl. But I'm mentioning people who their stories and the circumstances that you see is something in front of us. Like Muhammad ibn Munir, that's different, Akhi. A young brother such as his age, a person who Allah Jalla wa Ala gave the ability to not only get his bachelor's, but get his master's degree at a young age and do exceptionally well who skipped past the language program, who was able to benefit and come back and just look at the different things. These individuals, by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala, was granted a fadl from Allah, and they are Americans. So why is it that we are regulating the dawah and that we are programmed to take from these individuals and not to take from these individuals? And why is it that we are going along with this? These individuals, brothers and sisters, I'm not talking about Mufti, I'm not talking about Tahir, I'm not talking about this person or that person. I'm just talking about this concept of individuals promoting the regulating the dawah, calling individuals, talking to individuals, telling people where they should teach and what they should teach and how they should teach and who they should teach with. Brother, that's not the case. We are in need of more people from our people, I'm saying Americans, not African Americans, from our people that understand our issue, to help us with our issue. And this has been said by multiple scholars. I only mentioned two. This has been said by multiple scholars, and I only mentioned two, about people learning and going back to their land and teaching. And this is how knowledge was back in the day. People would travel to the center of knowledge, learn, and come back and teach their people. I mean, that's was the purpose. One of the mission statements of the Medina University is that a person learns from them and go back to their respective region or land, and they teach, or they set up institutions, and they help people learn and spread this dawah. That's the purpose. Sheikh Muhammad Imam, one of the students of Sheikh Muqbil, Hafidhullah, Rahmatullah Ta'ala alayhim, a brother, a close friend of mine, who had the honor to study with the Sheikh, sit in some of the Sheikh classes and things like that. He said that he also would go out with some of the students of the Sheikh. And what the Sheikh would do was, if you memorize the Quran, the Sheikh will give you a stipend, and he also give you a place to stay. And the Sheikh would send people out every Friday to go give dawah. This is from like their usloob, their manners, that they would go out to different regions or different masajids, and they would go give dawah. Those masjids don't have to be Salafi. I just want you to understand this. The brother said he would ride on the bus with these different students, and they would go to different places to give dawah. And he would send them out weekly, every week, to go give dawah to different places. This is what I understand from when I read from the biographies of the scholars of the past. This is what I get. This is what they do. So we have brothers that can teach us and help us, but because of this list, and because of this regulating the dawah, and because of this mentality, we can't go near that benefit. We can't benefit from those people because they are contagious. We can't benefit from the people because they didn't make the list. SubhanAllah al-Azim. This is not from the ulama. Okay? Another dear brother, for many of you people might know him, Naeem Abu Abdullah, by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Nice, humble brother, and I hope he does not see this video. And this humble brother, by the permission of Allah Jalla wa Ala, Allah blessed him. And many people know from his characteristics and the manners and the way that he teaches knowledge, that he makes it fun, that he encourages you want to learn more. The brother had benefit, but because of a squabble, and because of a misunderstanding, and because of him not taking a certain position or aligning himself with a group of other individuals, you can't benefit from him. These individuals you cannot no longer benefit. And we have to be tired, brothers and sisters. This is not those brothers' fault. This is not Tulab. This is not Du'ats. This is not their fault. This is us fault. This is the layman's fault for not using our God-given faculty, which is our aql. We have to use our aql. If you avert and avoid using your aql, and you go against something that you know that doesn't make sense, then I am honestly going to say that you are following a trait of his being. And why is I'm saying that? Because if you find yourself, one, knowing that this doesn't make sense, I'm not taking from this individual, not because he went against the book and the sunnah and the Fahm Salaf, not because he did this, not because he did that. I'm not taking from him because so-and-so who I respect told me not to. Without any dalil. I can't repeat to you the dalil for not taking from him. And it wasn't important enough for me to learn and memorize the dalil, because to tell you it wasn't important enough is because I was following the person in the first place. I trust what he say. So I'm going to ride off of what he say. No scholar in this world going to tell you to just take what they say and not take the dalil. As Imam Ahmed is famous to say, drink from where we have drunk from. Tell it to lab. They would tell their students, take from where we have taken from. Drink from the fountain we have drinking from the Salaf. Not allowing taqleed or being a muqallid, being a blind follower. This is what they tell you. Go learn from them. We learn from them, the Salaf, then you go learn from the Salaf. This is what they're telling you. So an individual come along and say to you, don't take from so-and-so. And if you're not concerned with the dalil and the evidence for not taking from so-and-so, and you follow that, then you follow that because of that person's personality, not because of the haqq. And you have now followed a trait of his being. You understand what I'm saying? You have to be careful. Not, oh, I respect them. Not in these issues. In these issues, when it comes to placing tabdir, calling someone an innovator, or placing takfir, calling someone a disbeliever, or placing someone tafsir, or calling someone a fasting. And these issues of rulings and things like that is not permissible to say, I'm going to follow so-and-so off his personality. Now, for a blind follower, as the scholars have explained, when it comes to different fiqh issues and certain things, if that person doesn't have the knowledge to go in the books and look at himself, then he can follow a trustworthy scholar in his position of seeking that. But guess what? That trustworthy scholar he's following have cited evidence for the reason why he took that position. Okay? You do not follow nothing without no evidence. That's the very definition of a blind follower. If you don't know that, that's the very definition of a blind follower. Okay? You do not follow nobody without no evidence. Start using your aql and stop following the traits of his being. There is no such thing of a certain masjid you take from. I'm going to tell you right now, the Masjid al-Haram is filled with all types of Muslims. Those who call to that which is correct, and those who doesn't follow that which is correct. And it's the Masjid al-Haram. It never once been called Salafi Haram. I never heard of it. The Prophet's Masjid never been called a Salafi Masjid. I never heard of it. You want to never hear, not in history. And how many scholars have actually traveled to both of these sacred precincts? And not once have you ever heard them refer to the sacred precinct, the Haram, nor the Prophet's Masjid as a Salafi Masjid. Scholars upon scholars who we take from, read their biographies, who we love, who we try to imitate. None of them refer to these sacred precincts as Salafi Masjids. And I'm going to give you another bone, because now I got to throw this out there. And if you look in their biography closely, none of the masjids that they occupied or they were imams at, they called them Salafi masjids either. None of them. And this is a proven fact. I'm not making this up. None of them called these masjids Salafi masjids. You won't find it in one of their works. If you got somebody that's strong in Arabic, that can read Arabic, tell them to go back and look into the works of any of these scholars and find me one statement that was made, يعني كنت في مسجد salafi. I just want to know. I was in a Salafi masjid. Just mention to me one. Kuntu fi Salafi masjid. I was in a Salafi masjid. You're not going to find it. It doesn't exist. You know why they didn't have to label a masjid to be Salafi? Do you understand why they didn't have to label an event to be Salafi? Or a lecture to be Salafi? Or a gathering to be Salafi? Because they were well grounded in what they was adhering to. They understood that being Salafiyya was more so an application than a ascription. They understood that being Salafi was more so implementation than a claim. That's how they understood it. So the teacher, he was already Salafi, and what he taught, and how he adhered to the Dawa. He didn't have to broadcast it that I'm Salafi. That wasn't understood. You saw that from what he taught and from where he took his knowledge from. Not in today's time. Everything has to be Salafi. Come to us, this is a Salafi Eid. Ish. This is a Salafi gathering. Come where the Salafis are at. This is Hizbiyah, brothers and sisters. When people talk like that, this is Hizbiyah. Don't you know in Egypt right now, those people who put Salafiyah on their masjids and on their gatherings and things like that, they are the people who are mujahidun. They are the people who look at as terrorists. In Egypt, that's how the government look at them. They are the people who do that. You don't find, and I've been in Sheikh Raslan Masjid, and I sat in Sheikh Raslan classes, And nor do I run around saying I'm the Sheikh student. But I never, when I was in Egypt, brothers and sisters, I never saw a scholar that called to that which is correct have Salafi masjid or Salafi this or Salafi that. You don't see it. It's not even there. But when you come to the West, you got people who put their names up. My name is Abdullah Salafi. I'm this Salafi. All of this is cliquish. All of this is Hizbiyah. All of this is not the way of the scholars. It's not the way of the Tulab. It's not. And when you find individuals who quote unquote supposed to be students, who quote unquote supposed to have this knowledge, quote unquote supposed to have this, and they allow this stuff to go on, and they don't warn against it, and they don't try to correct it, then I have to question their motives. I have to question their motives, because you have to explain to the people, this is not their way. You will never find a gathering where Sheikh Salih Fawzan will call the lecture a Salafi lecture. Yes, he talked about what is Salafiyah, the characteristics of Salafiyah, but he don't run around talking about I'm Sheikh Salih Fawzan as Salafi. Sheikh Uthaymeen didn't do it. Okay, Sheikh Suleiman al-Ruhaili doesn't do it. None of the scholars in any different region, they don't do it. When you find scholars who only pinpoint that, then you have to look, brothers and sisters, to what other scholars, their peers, are saying. You have to look and you have to investigate what other scholars and their peers are saying about those particular scholars that parade and promote this type of mentality that we're the Salafis and we the Salafis must stick together and exclude everyone. Newsflash: the Salafis are the minority of the minority here in the West, especially in America. Newsflash: the Salafis are the minority of the minority here in the West, in the U.S. And that's a fact. What does that mean? That means that majority of the Muslims here doesn't adhere to Salafiyah. But that don't mean that they don't adhere to Kitab wa Sunnah. They might don't take the description of Salafiyah. And not all of them on the level of deviancies. They do want to learn. They do want to be educated. But if you close that door, they need to come to us. Ish, where's the arrogance? They need to come to us. No, they don't need to come to you. They don't need to come to you. Your facilities are not ran correctly. You don't even understand how to utilize the Kufar system, which you have to utilize. You have to live in the West. You have to utilize their system. You can't tell me, no, we don't do. No, you do that. We have to do that. In certain areas we don't do that, then something happened. We have to. Like we have to pay taxes. You have to. Sheikh Uthaymeen mentioned if you don't, it allows them to come lock you up and arrest you. You have to. Even though tax is haram. For certain things to be set up. Not no cyber school. All of our schools are equivalent to cyber schools? No. We have to. We're not saying that a cyber school is wrong, but that's not, we don't have real schools. You don't want to hire a Kufar teacher because a Muslim teacher doesn't have it? Well, guess what? Newsflash. Sheikh Fawzan said that you can hire a Kufar teacher. As long as he's not teaching your kids anything that goes against Kitab wa Sunnah. If he's skilled and he's qualified and he's learned in that particular area that you need to be learned, you can benefit from him. That mentality is a control mentality. And there's a lot of brothers and sisters caught up on that. I'm repping this masjid. It's like me saying I'm repping the block, or I'm repping the hood, I'm repping this set, I'm repping this strip, I'm repping this game. You don't see it? That's Hizbiyah. Yeah, you know, all I go is just go to this masjid. Yeah, I'm only on this street. That's my area. That's my squad. I only take from them. No, that's not how we work. I'm not Team Tahir. So if anyone think that, I'm not that. But I do respect Tahir. And I do respect Dr. Tahir. And I do love Dr. Tahir. And I do respect the fact that Allah Jalla wa Ala have blessed him and favored him. And I do respect his knowledge. But I'm not Team Tahir. I'm not running around with a shirt on saying I'm Team Tahir. I do respect all of the people of knowledge. No matter how, on what level they are in knowledge. All of the people that are seeking it and trying to acquire, I respect them all. But what I do not respect is people who try to regulate the Dawa. People who try to control the Dawa. People who try to take the focus of the people and put it that way. I don't respect that. So we can stop that. I just wanted to bring this as a reminder, brothers and sisters, to the laymen on these social media platforms. Can you please stop sharing these traits of Hizbiyah? Only messages to go to, only scholars to take from, only students to take from. You don't have a dalil, and I challenge you to bring the proof. You don't have one proof from the book, the sunnah, nor the scholars, nor the a'immas, nor the historical data to show you that this was ever done by any scholar, that you can place up a list and say take from so and so. So if you don't have a proof for doing that thing and you do it anyway, then I have to say, what's your motive? Because you want the people to take only from those people that you recommend, and you want them to avoid those people you don't put on that list. That's the only thing this conclusion I can come up with. And to me, that is a control, that's regulating, that's controlling the dawah. Fear Allah Azza wa Jal. Inshallah ta'ala. Where we said that was incorrect in our translation was definitely from ourselves and the shaitan. We ever said it was correct, it's from Allah Jalla wa ala. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakallah khair.